Welcome back to another episode of the Life Roast. I'm John. We got Big T over here. Yes. So, more uncomfortable conversations, more digging in to social norms and popping out of the box and challenging everything going on around us. Today, we are talking about school again, but not just school, public school, private school. We're going into the elementaries and the high schools. And we already talked about college and that whole thing. So we're going to go back into what a lot of us are facing today now, because we're adults, we're parents. We got our kids going back to school. It's August, mostly anyways, unless you're homeschooling. And then I don't know if that ever ends really. But public and private schools, the kids, the parents, the policies, the teachers, all of it, in and outs of everything. So I think T over here has got some stuff on his screen over there, because that's what we do. We don't have these screens up because we're watching movies. It's because he is sometimes. We're looking up facts so that we can share them with you and have a little bit of conversation about them and dive into all the stuff that's unscripted.
There we go. All right, we'll get right into it here. And again, another near and dear topic to discuss here to my world. So let's go into some of the numbers of the facts here, or the pseudo facts. 12% of American students attend a private school in some form or fashion, whether it be a religious school, just a separate school. I don't think charter schools. 8% attend charter schools, and 3% are homeschooled. So what do we got there? We got 12, 20, so 23% of the American students go somewhere outside of public school, with the balance obviously being in public school. And the part that actually, that number amazed me, because I would have thought it was more. Where we live here, private school is a pretty big deal. Maybe it's the circle I hang out in, but
I feel like we got a lot of private schools.
Yeah, a ton of them. And whatever. So they go there, but the public schools, everyone, the amazing part of real estate and where you live is, how's your school system, and, is it excellent rated or whatever rating it is. And I don't know. I think they do their ratings based on these standardized tests and how well students score. And then, that turns into this whole rigmarole of, do you actually teach the kids, or you just teach them how to do well on a test so you get better rating? I don't know if ratings maybe we should look that up, if ratings give better tax money, or are they just trying to attract more people to the area? Who knows?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they get a little bit of assistance from for programs and stuff with the government.
Okay.
But
again, it's all government bullshit, and we'll get into that too. But the big deal here in the conversation we're going to have is, okay, does it matter? Does it really matter? If I lined up 10 people, if I lined up 10, we'll call them unsuccessful people, and 10 successful people, could I pick out just by their look or where they are in life if they went to private school or public school? I don't know if it's possible. I went to public school. I think I did pretty damn well. But I have friends that went to private school and whatever. So, where are they in life? I think that's my question now, of which is better.
Well, and even further, I don't know if I could sit here and say I can tell which kid went to private school and public school. Obviously, sometimes you can look at an adult and say, well, you probably went to college and maybe you didn't go to college. But I don't even know if that's the case anymore, right? Because I know a lot of people. I know people who dropped out of high school who aren't dumb, and you wouldn't be able to tell that they even dropped out of school, right? So, I think that whole point's null and void. But this is a conversation that I actually had with a client the other day, because her kid does go to private school, and I'm like, I don't know if there's really that much of a difference, right? I'm not familiar. I never went to public school, but I know in public school around here,
you went to public or private?
I went to public school.
Okay.
Around here, the private school kids, one of the predominant private school kids, once they reach high school, a lot of them come into our public school.
Sure.
Because they don't have the high school local, unless you go to one out of town. But some of those kids would come in and be like, wow, these kids are, I don't know, just as crazy as we are. There really wasn't this. They were, of course we used to make fun of them because they'd have their noses held high and all that stuff. And we kind of joke around. But as far as kids go, I don't know if there was that big of a difference. or if like after a year of them being in high school, you'd actually be able to tell who came from who unless you actually knew who they were.
Right.
So I don't know if there's an actual difference, but somebody argued. What I was getting at is my client actually argued with me. She's like, I totally disagree with that. Like, private schools are totally different. I have friends who have public school kids and they tell me all the stories, but I think that's more like the policies, the discipline, the mentality, the teachers and stuff like that, like the actual education. So I don't know, like individual wise, what the difference actually is.
I don't know. I mean, obviously private schools compared to public schools, some private schools have the funding, have whatever, the tuition is nuts, where they do have finite programs that you'd never see in a public school. But reverse that, the public schools have the funding, the state funding, if they need special resources and things like that, where, if your child is, learning disabled or
like IP or
right, all that stuff, or, handicap, whatever, your private schools don't have that kind of funding to, take care of any kind of special needs. So there's pluses and minuses on both ways. But going back to the education part of it is, can I tell? I don't know. Can I tell that Johnny came out of public school or private school based on their next steps, whether it's college or just go get a job? It goes back to my famous philosophy in life of who fucking cares? Like, it's high school. We put so much emphasis on grade levels that just give you a basis of enough to go out and be worthy in society. But, there's this argument that private school is better or public school is better. But again, who cares? Like, you're still young, you go to school, and that's that.
Well, I think that's coming from a perspective that, like, I'm not big on a lot of what is taught in the education system anyways, right? I'm not like one of these big indoctrination people.
Sure.
But there's a lot of useless stuff that my kids come out. Don't get me started. Come out of school with. I'm just like, why did we need that, right? But I look at the fundamental, like the baseline of education, and if you looked at a textbook from a private school and a public school,
same thing.
It's going to be the same thing. It might be written by a different author because a lot of private schools tend to be more on like the Christian or Catholic or religious side of things. So maybe they found an author who was a pastor or a priest or whatever it is instead. And so the information might be a little different. And the approach might be a little different. Who knows? Maybe because they have more money and funding, the teachers, and because there's more structure, the teachers are able to relay the information better. I don't know. But the information itself is the same.
Right.
And ultimately, it is going to be up to the kid. Sure. It doesn't really matter what structure there is. Like, if the kid's still kind of a dick and not paying attention or messing around and not like, it's not going to be any different.
Right.
So like the information is going to be, if I look at a history book's a history book.
Correct.
In the US of America, it's going to be the same information. So I don't understand. And I don't want to deny that there's not differences. I'm just on that level. I really don't think there is.
I totally agree with you. The other part there is, who's the teacher? Like, in a private school, and I'm literally making this up, so we should probably look at it, but I don't believe in a private school you have to have a teaching certificate.
Really?
Let's go to the videotape. But no, I don't think that it's because I know certain private school teachers that were, let's say, ex-business people, and they retired and they just decided they wanted to go back and give back, and they went into a school system. Let's just type it in here.
That would actually be really interesting.
Private school teachers need...
He does this with everything. He narrates exactly what he's doing.
Well, otherwise I can't see. Let me just put on my specs here because I'm blind as a bat. Whether private school teachers need to be certified varies by school. Some schools may not ask for a certification at all.
Wow.
Whereas obviously a state run or a public school, you have to be credentialed. You have to have all this stuff. It's all got to be in your file. You have to have all this stuff unless there's some kind of special situation.
Well, I feel like there's more like government regulation when it comes to public schools.
For sure.
Right? Like, so like they have their standards and you have to follow those. Like, private schools are like, no, we kind of fund ourselves, so we're going to do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah. So
that kind of makes sense.
Well, but my point in bringing that up is, who's teaching the course? Have they been trained to teach the course? Or are they just kind of reading from a textbook and giving their interpretation? I don't know. Again, your private schools don't have to follow the same requirements as a public school, but they're still trying to push them to a certain level to match what's there, because when you graduate from, let's say, 8th grade and you're going to go into high school, are you prepped for the next level? And if you do go from a private school to a public high school, did you learn enough to keep up with whatever your grade level is? I don't know. I don't know how all that works. I still go back to, does it matter? Does it really matter? And I'll look at it this way. My older kids went to public school, and my younger kids are going to private school. Why? Because my wife. Flat out. My first wife wanted them to go to private school. After she passed away, I said, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm not paying for it. So I put them in public school. They're turned out just fine. All thriving, doing well. My young kids are in private school, like I said, and they're in private school because my wife. And they're there, and my money goes there, and her money goes there, or whatever. And I look at it and say, okay, am I really getting any more, any less? And what I believe as I'm getting sucked into it is the public schools are fucked. Just get rid of the education part of it. Just the socialization of stupidity and what we allow to go on in a school is so damn ridiculous that I actually just had to make the decision to send my son to a private school that's ridiculous in money. They all are.
And it's far.
It's a 30-minute drive without traffic. And it was made solely on the basis of our public high school is a shit show of just do what you want, when you want, how you feel. The community is accepting and inclusive, and that's awesome. But it's friggin' school. Do that shit on your own free time. If you want to be this, that, and you want to pee in a box, you want to color your hair, you want to poke holes in your face, you want to do it again, do it on your own time. I don't care about any of it. Do you? But I don't know how it's infiltrated the elementary schools and the high schools, where free-spirited people have to be accepted, and you're not allowed to say anything. Whereas the private schools, here's your uniform, here's your haircut, go. You can express yourself after school. Sorry, that's my.
You just opened up the door.
Oh, big one. Go ahead.
Oh, look. So this is it's fun. I graduated from that school, by the way. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I turned out great. I look like I came from a public school. So it's funny because I did graduate from the local high school, and from what I hear, like a lot of public schools are the same, right? There is just so much bullshit now. And I remember going back, even then, like I graduated 09. It's 2025. I don't even know how long ago I graduated. 15 years.
Oh, no.
And like even back then, like, they used to try to cover everything up. They tried to, do stuff, but like they still were strict. Like you couldn't get away with shit, right? Like if you got into a fight in the hallway, you would get suspended. They expelled people. They kicked people out of school. They did there was punishment,
right?
For things. And now I was having a conversation with a client the other day, probably the same client. I don't know. And we were talking about how, some of the kids that her kid talks to in the school, they literally fight every day. There was this story. I love this story. It was great. I laughed my ass off. There was a kid who got in trouble, right? They sent him to the principal's office. Kid came back to class with a sucker from the principal because he said, the principal said that if I don't know if it was if I apologize or if I change my behavior every time I act out, I get a sucker.
So he can go get a sucker every time he's an asshole.
So now you're getting rewarded for acting out. That's what that is. Just so you know, and in case you don't know how the brain works in childhood development, when you reward a child for changing behavior, all that's saying is, hey, if I act out, I'm going to get a reward because I can manipulate this situation now. Mm-hmm. Anyways, what I'm getting at is what's funny is the public schools have turned into an entire shit show, right? They're a freaking circus now. Anything and everything happens. We were talking about the litter boxes in schools and how her public school orientation, they had to disclose that they don't allow that in their private school, right? Because apparently this thing happens in private schools. And we were talking about ADHD, and I got so much shit about ADHD recently and about schools because I made a comment about, kids being disruptive in class or whatever it was because the classes were boring and people shit on me about it. But anyways, and I'm like, okay, so it's not okay that a kid acts a little hyperactive, but they can go walk around playing dress up and identifying as all these different things and going pissing in the kitty litter box in the corner. Maybe that doesn't actually happen. I don't know. It's probably fake news on most of the levels, but they can go to any bathroom they want. They can go fight in the bathroom all they want. They can go to the principal's office and get a sucker for acting out. They can and that's not distracting other students.
Right.
The piercings, the I don't know if they're getting tattoos, but the hair dye, the misbehaving, the talking, all this political stuff, like that's not distracting. But my kid who's a little hyperactive is. Now needs to be medicated. You got literal psychos from Arkham Asylum, from Batman walking around here, and my kid who's hyperactive is the problem.
Right.
My kid not specifically, but I hear the stories, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, literally, like I'm not even a Christian. I want to go to private school, take my kids out of public school.
But even at the private school, because I'm in that world, is we're still catering to the nonsense. I mean, my kids attend a private school now, and I love the aspect of clean cut. You're all wearing the same uniform. There's no autonomy to anything. Like, listen, you're there for an education, so I don't care if you got your Gucci stuff on and you're cool this and you're whatever. Like, I don't care. You're all wearing the same crap. But I do notice that some boys get to have longer hair, or some girls get to do something, all because they hide behind their religion or their race or their wherever. Like, come on, it's all in. You all get the same haircuts. You all do this stuff. Again, we're trying to promote the education part of it, and in the private schools, the religious part of it. Which, again, as you know, my stance, whatever. But even the private schools are starting to conform to some of the bullshit that we see in society of making sure everyone's, included. Like, just stop. But going back to public schools, and this is a shout out to the teachers. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. It's one of those, you're pot committed. You've been there so long, you can't jump ship now. But the fact that you have to put up with this nonsense in a school where, I think we said it on the last one. If I got a phone call home from the principal, I was going to get my ass ripped at home. So it was like, okay, sorry, Mr. Principal, or sorry, Miss Teacher, whatever it was, like, please don't call home. I won't do it again. And then you get to call home. You're like, okay, shit. Well, now I'm double trouble. Now, you parents are nuts. Like, if your son or daughter did something, why are you defending them right out of the gate? Like, you think a teacher really wants to waste their day calling you to say, hey, your son did this or your daughter did this and it disrupted my whole class and destroyed everything. And your first thing was, well, what were you saying? And why were you talking to my son that way? Like, when did we shift?
Well, I think you said teachers are now the criminals.
Right.
And like, it's crazy because I know a few teachers, and what's funny is I know teachers on both sides of this where they're like, yeah, we should treat kids like this and we should let them express themselves and all this stuff. And then you got the other teachers like, I hate this, but I've been doing, like, I love teaching.
Right.
I just can't stand the way that this has been politicized and all this stuff. Like, I can't discipline a kid anymore. And again, I'm not talking about smacking kids across the face and all this stuff, right? Like, I can't send the kid to the principal's office. So we can't get kids suspended. We can't get kids, like, detention's barely even a thing. Like, oh, it's okay. Like, just don't do it again. Right. And teachers, they're fed up with it, but what are they going to do? They can't, their hands are tied.
Right.
And I think, like you said, the same, I think it's going in the same direction to a certain degree in private schools now. Cause, like, I remember the stories. I used to listen to the stories. I had family members that used to go to Catholic school. Mm-hmm. Their kids were like, the rulers across the knuckles. And and I'm like, but you probably paid attention, didn't you?
For sure.
You probably didn't act a fool, right? And everyone's like, oh, that's so wrong. It's like, what is it about the education? Right? Because if you want your kid to be all, dancy, prancy, free loving, all that stuff, like, just keep them home and homeschool them. You send them to public school, so that they can learn information, so that they can learn how to memorize, learn how to take a test, learn how to socialize, not to do all this other dumb shit.
Well, that's
like, just keep them home if that's the case.
But again, that's my piece that I still say, okay, add the homeschool one, line them up, homeschool, private school, public school. What's the differences? I have no freaking clue, because it still goes back to, who cares? It's freaking high school. Did you learn how to do math? Did you learn how to read? Outside of that, I don't know what else there is. Like, yes, you want to excel, and yes, you want to learn how to take tests, and yes, you want to find things, but it's about fundamentals. Like, you're going to go off to a trade school, you're going to go off to college, you're going to go off and go do something else. Like, did you learn how to learn? And I think that's the stupidity of where we pair each other against each other. Your private schools, you get sucked into the dogma of religion. Well, now you're there, and trust me, when I go to these private schools, where my kids go, I love the structure, I love the teachers, I love the whole program. But the religious part of me drives me bonkers. It's like, holy shit, you're indoctrinating them into this path where you get them for 7 or 8 hours every day, and it's religion. And I think, okay, well, that's what I signed up for.
Right.
But I still take it back to, and you just said it best, like, okay, I then homeschool them. Well, okay, well, now the socialization's not there, and now they don't learn how to do this. And like, but again, tell me a 33-year-old was homeschooled. I have no clue.
Not unless you had a conversation with them.
Right.
And again, I'm not arguing the point that from an educational standpoint, from an information standpoint, that it's going to be that much different. Right? Like, I'm not arguing that. I get that. It doesn't matter where you go. The information is the information. 2 + 2 = 4. I don't. So now I guess I'm racist for even saying that, and I apologize. But 2 + 2 is 4. It's a thing.
I know. Trust me.
It's a thing.
Math is
sometimes
racist.
It can equal 5. I don't know.
Right.
And I'm condescending if I think otherwise.
Right.
But 2 + 2 = 4. You're homeschooled. 2 + 2 = 4. You can go to public school. 2 + 2 = 4. Private school. 2 + 2 = 4. Holy shit! Such a hard concept. Right. I get that, and I can't argue that, but I do. I think from like a bigger picture thing, if I homeschool my kids, because we were just talking about this, because like I would rather homeschool my kids if I was in a position to do so, right? But it's more or less just getting them away from all the crazy shit going on.
Yeah, but
right, because I can socialize them.
Sure.
In other ways, But I also do believe that there's a place for having to tolerate all that bullshit and growing from it, and like teaching them the skills that they need to go into school and not be a part of all the dumb stuff,
Oh yeah.
So like, I think that's valuable. Like, we talk about bullying. Like, I've had anti-bully movement. Like, I have been an advocate for anti-bullying, but I also understand at the same time that there's a place for it.
Sure.
To a certain degree. Right. And so like, that's where I get like, it's like, I'd probably send my kids to public school because they need a little toughening up. Right.
But the bullying goes on in private school too.
Absolutely. I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't think parents send them to school, to private or homeschool for the information. I think they send them for all these other reasons that we're talking about. Mostly. I don't know. Maybe there's people that send them because they think the information's taught better. I don't know.
I'm thinking that everything I think is, who cares? People get on their high horse about private school and what it does for the child and what it brings in. And again, my whole piece is structure. Okay. You've eliminated all of the stand out and look how cool I look and the socioeconomic status. Like, unless you see mom and dad's cars and know the situation, every kid is exactly the same. There's no rich kid or poor kid from a look.
Right.
So maybe that's an advantage of being there, but everyone knows who's got the money and who doesn't have the money. And that's the nonsense of it. And who cares? Like, the kid is supposed to get an education, but if I go back to a public school, the nonsense that goes on there, and it probably goes on in private, but I know more public school teachers that are friends where, the teaching profession is almost a calling. Like, they just love educating. They love working with kids, and they love giving the aha moments. And yet your job comes down to administrative people telling you exactly how to run your class and what you need to do, and do not stray from the program, because this program is exactly the way it needs to be. And don't be crafty with the way you're going to deliver the message. This is how you deliver the message. There is no and I shouldn't say fun, because I'm not there, but there is no creativity on how to reach different students. It's, here's the way you feed it down their throat. We have to do well on the test. Don't stray from this. And that's that. Yes, we will try and cater to those that are more learning disabled, and we will try and promote those that are advanced. But here's the curriculum. Get your shit done. If on 100% of your day, we will give you maybe a 0.5% where you can be creative. The other 99 point whatever, guess what? Follow the line, toe the line, or your ass is grass. Now, go one step further. Now I'm going to introduce the next crazy part of private or public school: teachers unions. Whole world in and of itself. And this may stir some thoughts, but tell me a profession. Tell me any profession where you reach a certain milestone of years and you get tenured, which essentially says you are free from getting fired. You are free from really even doing a good job. You're tenured, meaning, wow, you've been here 7 years. We've now given you the official title of, you can get away with anything you want, because you could be a shitty teacher because the union has protected you, where you can't get fired. Like, you don't strive to be better each year. You don't have to. You're in the club. You made it.
You've been there just long enough to stop giving a shit.
Right. And that's really what happens when you see these. And I've talked to teachers where they're like, T, it's a joke. It literally is a joke. Like, they can show up to school, throw a lesson out, pass out a bunch of pieces of paper that talk about whatever the topic is. And then after the 47 minutes or whatever the period is, they collect them, and that was the day. And then they get a break for their teacher planning hour, and then they get their lunch, and then they whatever. But again, all created through some union that protects the shit out of them. And now they're tenured. Like, in most job, that's called the 3 strikes and you're out with HR. Where in teachers, there is no 3 strikes.
Do schools even have HR?
Yeah, it's called teachers union.
Oh, okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Like, the school cites a problem with the teacher, and the union comes in and says, hey, no, this person's tenured.
This is like the most ridiculous thing ever.
I mean, again, how can you be really shitty at your job and be protected? In most companies, you get shit canned. In the school system, you stay and expect your yearly, cost of living bonus, and you just stay. Amazing. All protected by a teachers union. Don't get it.
That's rough.
Yeah. That's public school. I don't think it happens in private school, because private school is just happy they have enough teachers and they don't pay them for shit. So those people are technically still there for the love of what they're doing. But I know there's politics in private school as well.
Absolutely. And I guess that's the point too, is like, I don't want to just slam all teachers, because there are still a lot of teachers out there who put up with all this stuff too, right? Like, that don't want to be a part of the union, that don't want to do all the things, that want to be outside of the box a little bit and still love doing what they do. And they exist. And I think it's such garbage, the amount of red tape that the bureaucracy of public schools put on teachers' hands. I was looking up, because if there's one stance that I have, it's one of the things that I hate about public schools more than anything is the fact that there is no creativity, right? Even art class is like, so boom, boom, boom. Like, this is the structure. This is it. And I don't want to say there's structure, but there's no individuality. Right. And I get it. How could you, right? Like, you have one teacher per 20 kids or something.
Right.
There's no way you can set aside, like, a coach who has 2 or 3 coaches, say, hey, I'm going to take this kid aside, and I'm going to work with him on some stuff while you take the other 19. Like, they don't have that.
No.
Right. And so I totally get that you can't individualize learning. And I'm not talking about IEP. I'm saying you got kinesthetic learners, you got audio learners, you got visual learners, you got all these things. Right. and they're not allowed to teach according to those things. They just have a set format, and that's it. And if you stray from the path, which sometimes it happens, sometimes teachers just like, whatever, I'm going to do it anyways.
Right.
If they get caught, they're going to get in trouble. And that's stupid.
Right.
And then if you're tenured, right, at that point, I don't know. I know a lot of teachers who are tenured who literally just don't care. Like they do, they show up. And I remember there was a tenure teacher who got caught in some scandal, and they totally swept it under the rug because he had tenure. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, what? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but that's that union coverage, protection, whatever it may be that I question. And this happens in every company. Someone's always protected by someone else just based on their level or whatever they have. But you know, what happened to just, this is a school, we're here to educate. You know, when the nonsense gets too thick, get rid of it. No, you can't. It's public school, and there's rules, and sorry, deal with it. But as parents, it's like, well, what do we do? Nothing.
Well, you can if you want your kid to go to school.
Yeah, and now in California, here's the latest and greatest. Shit. In California, they just took they made it legal that a teacher, if your boy comes to school and his name's Kenny, well, he now wants to be known as Susan because that's the way he felt this morning. And oh, by the way, Kenny's 9, and Kenny's had a moment of clarity in his head that he's Susan. And the law now is the school does not have to tell the parents. Actually, like, they would deliberately not tell the parents that your boy is, I don't know, what's the term?
I don't know.
Transferring, like, what's it? Like, he thinks he's a woman. Yeah. Right. Okay, but there's a rule that the school doesn't have to tell the parents. Even if the parents ask, we don't have to divulge that information about your own son or daughter. Like, this is where we're headed, people. Like, fucking ridiculous. Public school. So that's that. I'll get off of that one because I can go in a million directions with that one. The other part that I think is nuts about education now, too, is we are so focused on these stupid ass tests to prove our
memorization capability.
Yeah, memorization, but just to prove the quality of our school system. But yet I remember taking classes that are no longer existent, like industrial arts. Did you even have industrial arts?
The hell is industrial arts?
So industrial arts in my world in high school and even in junior high was construction class.
Okay.
Learn how to use a saw and a drill and how to miter wood so you can make a picture frame, or the
shop class.
Okay. Yeah. Industrial arts was the official term. IA, fancier. But it was shop class, or it was mechanics. There was small engine mechanics. Like, we all mow the lawn. We all, and this is what I think is hilarious. Like, when neighbors can't get their lawnmower started in the spring, they're like, it's shot, I got to go buy a new one. I'm like,
you just need a spark plug, bro.
Right. But that's where I'm like, did you take the spark plug out? And they'll look at me like I have 10 heads. Like, how do you not know how to take a spark plug out? Like, take the spark, then what? Okay, well, you can clean the little head on it, or you could just go buy another one for $3 instead of going buy another $300 lawnmower, and voila, it fires up. And they'll look at me like I'm a genius. But where did I learn that? In high school in small engines.
Really? Okay.
How to bend metal, how to do that. Again, that's on the shop side of it. But, the home ec. Do high schools still have home ec?
I don't know if they still, I did. I took a whole cooking class.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and cooking and sewing. Like,
so home ec, yeah, they used to do that in middle school when I was in there, but I don't think they do it anymore.
Right. I had it all the way through high school. But if you think about life's requirements. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you for teaching me about the pygmies of South America and how they wore plates in their ears or in their lip and all that. Great to learn. It's awesome. How that guides me in the future, I have no idea. But show me how to change an outlet, a light switch, because it went bad. Like, can the average person change a light switch out today? I doubt it. The average millennial go and literally take the cover off, undo it, whether you want to turn the breaker off or not. If you actually know what you're doing, you shouldn't electrocute yourself. But we don't teach that shit. We've taught them how to estimate. If I added two numbers together and I just wanted to estimate, could I be close enough? Like, what? How to do certain things. Like I help my sons and I look at them and my famous line is, yeah, just do whatever the stupid teacher says because you're never going to use this shit anyway. I shouldn't say stupid teacher. What the lesson says. Teachers, I need you to know, love you. I think you have one of the hardest jobs in the world. And on top of that, and then the administration makes it even harder. So I take that stupid comment back. The stupidity is the lesson. And yet my son doesn't know how to change the oil in his car. My son does. But as a generality, there's just so much that should be taught. It's not.
Well, I think that's an attack on the system, though, right? Because a lot of people say, well, like that's stuff that you should be teaching them at home as a dad.
Sure.
Right. And I do. You do. My kid's 4 and 8 and they've already used power tools, right? Sure. Like for me, that's my responsibility. But you got families now that are working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs, don't have time for that stuff. Right. And if they used to teach it when parents did have time for it, and now they're not teaching it when parents don't have time for it, what do we think is going to happen? They're not going to learn it. Right. Those classes were awesome. I used to love shop class. Kids loved shop class.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know a kid that didn't like shop class.
Well, the girls didn't like it.
Even the girls that I know that were in the class, like it was just fun. Like especially the teacher made it fun. Like I'm sure it would have been different otherwise, but those were valuable things. If not anything, then to teach how to think. And you started this out with the standardized testing, and this is one of those things that drives me nuts about the school system in general, is that we don't teach kids how to learn. We teach kids how to memorize.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And we talk about this all the time in our programs and our coaching and in all of our stuff. It's like, if you know how to learn, you can do anything. You can, if you know how to ask questions and look out into resources and research and do all these things. Like if you know how to learn, there is nothing stopping you, especially today when nobody knows how to learn because they just know how to know. Right. They just know how to memorize. They just know what they've already learned. Right. Like that's it. They don't know how to, and of course, you can just get on Siri and Alexa, just ask. And that's what I think is so funny about all this stuff is like, I don't know who the third president is. I bet you I can find out in 3.5 seconds by asking Google though. So why the hell do I need to learn?
Hey Siri, who was the third president? Thomas Jefferson.
Duh. Right? It took a whole semester for me to learn that shit. Right? But so like we're in a time, public schools in general are like one of the last standing institutions from the industrial age that haven't changed.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I believe
business has changed. Banking has changed.
Technology
has changed. The food industry, like all these industries have changed. And if you go into a school now and take pictures of how it's set up, it's the exact same as it was 100 years ago. And it's insane. Like, why are we teaching these things? I can use, what's a fun argument is when they say, you were never going to have a calculator on you all the time. And I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Ta-da! And here's the thing. And people will be like, well, you should still know. And I'm like, yeah, to a fundamental level, like I should still know how to do math to a degree, right?
Sure.
Because here's my argument is, if my phone goes out, if we no longer have phones, some serious shit happened in the world, right? Like, could you imagine if the internet went down? Like what that would mean on a global level? Like that means like nukes are going off and people are like blowing each other up and satellites are coming down, right? Like that's the level of technology we have today.
Sure.
If that was to go out, there's real problems in the world. I don't need to know what the square root of 87 is.
Right. But I'll go against you on that. I think it's amazing when I go to the grocery store and my bill is $18.21 and I hand them a 20 and they type it in the register and it's a kid and on an 1821 bill and I give them a $20 bill, they can't tell me what the change is and they will look at the screen and as they're counting up the quarters and they're trying to get to their, the 79 cents or, and they're like, and they keep looking at the screen like you didn't do the math in your head before you got there. It wasn't like you said with the square root of 87. okay, that one may take some thinking. Otherwise, it was just memorization. But to be able to do quick math in your head, it's great that you have the phone. But shit like that, there should have been some education level that said, okay, learn your multiplication tables, learn math, learn quick process of subtraction, addition, division, and multiplication. But to your point, though, are there other things that this comes in handy? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not denying that. And I guess that's kind of like where I was going to is like, I don't deny that you shouldn't know what 2 + 2 = 4 is, right? Like, and how to make change and all those. But I think those are simple things. I think by the time we're in high school, we already know that stuff.
Right.
My kid already knows how to make change. He's 8, right? Like he knows. Right. Sometimes I think I don't know. He knows stuff that I didn't even know they taught at that age. But after that, it's like algebra and calculus and all these things. And it's like, wow, like that's cool. If you're going to be getting into a field like that, pursue it. But to tell me that I'm not always going to have a calculator on me or access to the internet, it's just a moot argument.
Right.
Like that's all I was getting at.
No, I get it. I think that's the hard part. Like, what should be taught? What should we emphasize? But it goes back to my point on shop class or home ec or physical education. Again, think of everything after you graduate. What would have helped you more? I can be
not being weak and lazy,
overweight, weak, lazy, like you just said, or phys ed taught me enough, or at least gave me exercise that I would have never had before. And now after I graduate and I put on 50 pounds and I become sedentary, like did I learn anything from that aspect? Did my biology class just teach me how the heart works and the parts of the heart and your circulatory system, or did anyone go the next level, like an exercise phys, where they're showing you body movement and dynamics and what it does for you,
dude,
and how
so cool,
right? But
kinesthetic, like
right,
yeah.
but that's the stuff we learn later on, where it's like, okay, you wanted to indoctrinate the kid into a religion in private school and teach him at a young age because you've captured him. And same thing with math. Like I just said, you should at least know your addition tables and whatever, your multiplication tables. But why have we not given them the fundamentals of physical? Like what is important, like diet. Holy shit, don't get me started on the food that we can ingest and still somehow walk this earth. Trust me, donuts and cookies are my favorite. But that's my point. Like private school or public school, like what are we trying to put into these people, into these young minds that sticks with them long term? It's all gone. It's all for naught. We're just worried about the ridiculous test scores and what we deem as important. And I'm going to say total made up number, 85% of it's a bunch of shit we'll never use.
I don't know, man. I learned about syphilis in health class once.
and you knew not to stick it
I
somewhere
remember that
belong.
Stuff. Yeah,
sure.
like that was important.
Right.
Like,
right. I get it. But so I was going back to the private public school and the thought, and this just popped in my head as we were having this conversation. The big push in government and going back to politics is school choice, and how the conservative Republican side just says, hey, if your school sucks and your system sucks and everything about it sucks, the school's falling apart, there's no taxpayers' money, you should have the right to choose to go to a different school. And after a while, schools will become competitive and they won't squander their money. They'll spend it the right way, and they'll, learn to get proper teachers and a better physical structure, whatever it may be. And that's school choice. Whereas the Democrat side says, no, we're not having school choice, probably because of the unions, where the kids have to stay in their local school system. And what private school offers is, it technically is school choice. It's school choice in that you are allowed to say, okay, my kid's not going to the public school. He's going to go to the private school. But if he's going to do that, you have to pay for it, mom and dad.
Right.
But guess what? Not anymore. At least in Ohio. I don't know what happens in the other states. Now we had what they call ed choice, where the state said, hey, you've been paying all this tax money. It's only fair we give you some of that money to go to the private school. And everyone think that's freaking awesome. Like, okay, that's kind of school choice. And I get to use some of my taxpayer money to fund the private school. So everyone wins. And technically they do. It's kind of like a pseudo school choice without it being on the book school choice, right, where everyone's not arguing, saying, hold on, you got around the system. So now you can actually choose to put your kid into a private school, and the government will give you some of your money back if you deserve it. Meaning, if you are of a low income status, the state will help you, and they will give you more money to the private school. It's like financial aid, but it's financial aid you don't have to pay back. But if you're in a different school system and you want your kid to go to this private school and you make too much money to qualify, you could still send your kid there, but you get to pay full price. So it's a school choice method based on income, which is promoting that if you are low income, you can technically send your kid to a private school anywhere, and the state will help you pay for it. If you worked your balls off and you made a shitload of money and you could afford to pay full price, your reward is you can pay full price. Nice job. Way to work your ass off. The American dream.
I feel like that's kind of like it's a compromise. It sounds like.
In what way?
Well, you're talking about being able to choose. It gives that option.
Sure. Right.
So like it's that on that negotiation side of it, but it's like also if you can afford it, you're just going to pay for it.
Right.
So I feel like it might be a step in the right direction. Honestly, like it still sounds like it sucks a little bit. There's some kinks that need to be worked out of it, but any policy that's going to be implemented sucks at first. You know what I mean? Like you got to figure stuff out as it goes. Nothing's going to be perfect and make everybody happy. But yeah, I think that'd be kind of funny, to be honest. Like if they like had school choice, I think like half the schools would get totally shut down because they'd just be so ridiculous. They'd turn into like farms. You'd just be like,
well, that's the amazing part. Now we go to the next level. It was homeschool, private school, public school, but I said the statistic here, charter schools.
Like Montessori or?
Kind of like that, but your charter schools are the next level. It's a private school, yet funded school through private money, where they have an initiative to say, okay, we're not going to follow the bullshit of being a public school. We're going to teach our own lessons. We're going to create this world of awesomeness outside of religion and everything else, where the charter schools are killing it from an education standpoint. And they kind of follow the the religious school, the private schools dress codes. Like everyone wears the same shit. And they only bring in certain teachers that have the skill level to meet what these charter schools are trying to exemplify.
Right.
So they push this, and they're doing amazing, but yet the public schools squash them from they give them a bad rap. They try to say, oh yeah, no, their numbers are no better than ours. Like, why would we want to blast them? If they're having success, steal some of what they're doing. But again, the public schools and the politics, excuse me, are caught up. So I don't know what the hell I just keep on circling the drain again of, I don't think it matters. You still graduate if you graduate. And like you said, if you learn how to learn, I don't give a shit where you went. I did not learn how to learn. Then I went to college, thought I was going to be a doctor. Literally said, oh yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be the shit. I'm going to be freaking awesome. And then I realized, wow, what they were teaching in high school was freaking dumb. Because I got to college and it was a whole nother level of memorization. I couldn't keep up. It was too much. Like I did not know how to read. And you had to read, but I did not know how to read enough to contain the information, because it wasn't about spitting it back on a test. It was about spitting it on a test and then applying it to whatever program I was in. And my first 2 years, brutal. So it's learn how to learn. Private school, public school, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, that's something I take personal responsibility for with my kids. I get it. We get into this. It's not an argument, but at home, because we're looking at houses, and anytime we talk about the future, we like, where do we want to end up, right? And it's like something always ends up going back to the school system. I'm like, if we're sending our kids to public school, I really don't care where they go. I obviously don't want to live in the inner city, but that's more of like a house choice than it is a school choice. Like it's up to our kids to do whatever they do with the information that they have. And it's up to me to make sure that they know how to learn instead of just memorize. Like all those extra lessons, those come from me. I can't rely on the schools to teach them that. Right. That's just kind of like the acceptance level that I've had with this. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and fight the system. I'm just going to do what I have to do to make sure they know how to change a tire, to make sure they know how to ask questions, to make sure that they have self-confidence, to make sure they have all these things. Right. And so I kind of I'm like, who cares? I don't care. If we're going to send them to public school, we're just going to go where we want to live and then deal with it.
Right.
And then teach them how to be better kids. I don't know. Right. Because in my mind, like there really is no difference. You know, you're still going to be putting up with the same stuff. It's just going to be different people.
It is different people. It really is different people. And it's
different culture, maybe like a different, city, different type of, I don't know.
Right. And you know what people think, and I've seen this too. Private school or the elite families. It's really not. There are families there's a lot of families that go to private school whose parents work their balls off to afford it for them, because they are very caught up in the religious part of it. Like they like the religion being a part of their education, and they don't make much money, but what they do make extra goes to the school. And it's tough. It's rough, but they're so adamant about their son or daughter getting the rounded education with religion included. So it's, you see all levels in that side too. But they are knowingly sending their kid there, and they're involved in what goes on. Whereas a public school is, and this is why I feel for teachers, their kids just get dropped off and have at it. We'll see you in 7 hours. And the parents are there. Again, not blasting parents, but that's the public school. You get what's coming to you regardless. A private school can say, hey, your boy or your girl is a pain in the ass. We're done with them. No, thank you. Get out.
Right.
A public school, thank you, sir. May I have another? We'll see your boy tomorrow. I know we expelled him for fighting or doing whatever, but I'm not allowed to throw him out unless the circumstances are so extreme I can finally throw them out.
You got to get arrested.
Right. But I think that's the deal. So really, where are we at on private school and public school? Does it really matter?
No, I'm going to go back to the goal, right? Like this is where I go with all this stuff. Like what is the reasoning behind it? What is the outcome that we desire? Right? If it's because that I want the religious aspect of it, because I want the structure, because I want the distractions taken away, then private school. Right? If I want, a certain if I want my kids to toughen up or whatever the reason is, I want them to have a normal life, I send them to public school, right? But whatever it is, it's looking at the future, it's looking at the present and saying, hey, what lines up with my values, my morals, my beliefs, all these things? What do I want for my kid? Why do I want it? Am I just feeding into the, well, everybody else is doing it? Or, if I want my kid to be successful, like everybody else is telling me, send them to private school, or because, religion is being shoved down my throat, I got to send them to private school, whatever it is. I don't care. And I think most people shouldn't care, but what is the end result that I'm looking for? And then what best aligns with that? Mm-hmm. Like that's it. Because otherwise, you can send them anywhere. If you're doing the right things and you're teaching them right things at home, I don't think it really matters.
I don't think it does matter. And you know what? I will say this. I'm a public school kid and was pushing that my son, my 14-year-old son, goes to public school. And we looked at all the private schools. And the thing that sold me, and it's you guys are going to think this is hilarious, but we go there and they're pitching their classes and they're pitching their sports program and they're pitching all of this stuff and look how great our school is and oh my God, we're this and that. I'm like just following the listen, trying to be, respectful of their thing. And then the president of the school gets up, says his little sermon and speech and tells us all the great things. He goes, okay, but I'm going to stand out on a limb right now and tell you something. They hate when I say this, but here's how I know that we did well with your kid. He said, when I walk up a hall and your son or daughter's in front of me, they don't know I'm there. They're the only ones in the hallway. And there's a piece of garbage on the floor. There's a soda can. There's a balled up piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And he said, I know that we have done a good job in educating them when they bend over and pick up that piece of paper and put it in the trash can without being asked. It's like they've learned how to respect their place. They've learned how to give back in some capacity or whatever. When he said that to me, I thought, that wasn't education. That wasn't 98% of our kids go off to college. That wasn't We teach God and religion. It was just simple. We are going to teach these kids well enough that they know good from bad and that they would pick up a piece of garbage. So I was like, sold. That just cost me, a shitload of money a year. But that's really what it comes down to. Is the school building, private or public, are they building good people?
Yeah, I think a lot of us forget that these kids are going to become adults.
Right. and it's plain and simple. You choose private, you use public, but you just said, what's the goal we're looking for? What's the outcome? It's your choice. But I think part of that big piece there is, are we creating respectful, functional people in the future of our society? Or are we just shoving kids into a system because that's just what we're supposed to do?
Popping out entitled little brats.
Right. Because you got them in both sides. So you pick. I'm not a fan of either one. I think we teach a bunch of bullshit. There's my final statement. But don't tell me that there's a difference between the two, because there's not. My argument. Give me some thoughts in the comments.
Absolutely. Let us know. What do you think? You go to public school, you go to private school, let us know what you think about them. Give us.
Tell us why your kid goes to private school and why they go to public school. I'd really like to know why.
Me too. That's some good information. But anyways, that's it. That's where we're at. Anything else?
No, I'm done. Peace out, dude.
Okay. Don't forget though, don't peace out yet. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, okay? Because we do this, 2-3 times a week now. I'm dropping episodes all the time. Subscribe. Make sure you get access to all the latest episodes as they come out. We're on all the major social platforms and all that stuff. I don't even know which ones. There's 87 of them now. But anyway, subscribe, do all the things, whatever. Catch you next time.
Peace out.
Bye.